that don't have a comma, then they use the other one. That's it, it's an if statement, so we'll just, will be the interpretation of each one of those, okay? So, given that, let's go ahead and do it. So, we'll come here to full name. Right, remember that we had just a return, the first and last name, so we're going to do now. I'm going to have a set. Okay. The setter, remember what its value is? Value will be the entire string, you know. So the first things we're going to do, if, and then here we say value dot contains. What do I need to do? I need to put another string value. And in this case, it will be a comma. Right? So we have one option, or we have the other option. We're just gonna work like this. If it contains a comma, it then is last name, comma, first name. If it contains no comma, then it's first name, last name, separated by spaces. So here, we're gonna set, we're gonna create an array. It's gonna be a string, right? And then parse string, right? It says it's not being used, never been used, so we're actually going to say parse string is equal to, and then this is where we say value dot split. And here is where we're going to say which separator do we use. This is with the one with the comma. So I just put the comma in here. Like that?
With a space after.
Say again?
With a space after the comma.
With like this?
No, it's like in the quotation marks, the comma space.
Oh, together, right? Comma or space?
Yes.
Like that. Okay. And then just do that, right?
Yeah.
So this one will split the parts, you know, the value that we receive into two. And after that, what do we do?
So with the array at index 0,
So let's say first name is equal to,
that would be array 1.
will be parse string 1, right? And last name is equal to parse string 0, right?
Yes.
Okay, so that's the one where we have the comma, and the other one we're actually going to use the same parse string, and we're going to say value split, and we're just going to use the space, and then the other one will be, instead of doing this, we're going to do first name. First name is equal to parse string 0, because now it's reversed, and last name is equal to parse string 1. Correct? That's pretty much what you did, right? Questions about this? Anybody did something like this? Where you just discover, see, you think about the whole program, a problem, and say, okay, there are two cases, how do I distinguish between the two cases? Actually, in both cases, I need to split, I have to separate, which, need to take one of those. So, are we good with this? So that means I can put anything in it and it will actually do it, right? So let's, now we're gonna do, remember that before we couldn't do this because it would tell me that it was read only, but now it should be able to say full name is equal to, Smith, comma, John. Okay, so we run it. And it says, yeah, your full name is John Smith, right? And who's John Smith, by the way? He is actually the, I think is the Gruppenführer of the Americas. See, you haven't seen the Man in the High Castle, based on a novel by Philip K. Dick, where he imagined that the Nazis and the Germans actually won the war and divided the United States into Japanese area and the Nazi area. See? And you thought that you were coming to computer science. This is science fiction 101. Okay. So anyway, so John Smith, is properly done. Now we should use the other case, right? And the other case should be now, John Smith, right? And we'll say something like that. It's still John Smith. That's fine. So, are we good with something like that? Everybody?
Could you go back down to the, yeah.
Wayne, you think something different? Or about the same?
I did something, it was like slightly different, but.
Yeah, but it's basically the same problem, right? Same solution. Okay, so are we good with this? It should be fine, right? For whatever we do, it should be fine. So if I write something like this, right? It works okay. How about if I say this? So, what's going on?
Because of the order you have your if statement in, it sees that it has a comma, so it's separating it into the John Smith and the other part.
Right, but you see how I said the John Smith that actually did it well, but the other part, is them bomb. Is that what it wrote? Probably that's what it did, right? So is that what we expect?
It's all you have there.
Right? When we do this, of course, we find the comma, we use the split it in here, we take the first one and the second one. Let's see, maybe we can do this so that we can right line. The first name is, to be specific. Student first name. And so right on the last name Did I write that? Yes, okay, so good. This is what I meant. Sorry, it's my healing broken hand is sometimes lags in this finger over here. Okay. So, let's go again. Okay, so is that satisfying to you? I don't know whether you are or you are not satisfied. Is you good with that? So if somebody puts something like that in your system, that should be good. You know, for instance, let me write my full name. I'm Hispanic, right? So, yeah, you know how that's funny, isn't it? Let's see. This is the old way, okay? That's my name. Okay? Where is my full name? It's gone, right? It only took the first two, right? Because he parsed at every space, and they created an array that is longer, right? Has many, but I only take in the first two things. Okay. So let's put a comma in it. Let's just, throw a comma right here, which will actually take me through the other one. So, the last name is Rodrigo, but of course we took the comma, and before that, we took that as a last name. And the rest, we took it as, the rest of the thing is going to be Rodrigo. Is that what I expect? This is not what I would expect, actually. For the second one, you know why he's doing this? Why?
We're breaking it apart at each space.
Right, the first one, whenever we did that one actually broke it into different places because of the space. But why is it that the other one is actually doing it the other way?
Because you're breaking it from the comma.
Because only on the comma and space. You see, that's a condition, right? You put in the comma and space. So if I don't find a comma and a space, it's not gonna do it. So, let's do that, and then let's remove this space. So now we'll remove the condition. So what happened?
Never split, so there's not a one in the array, one position in the array.
There is not a one position in the array. That means they didn't split it, took the whole thing into one. Okay?
And also, since you said if it has a comma, then do the first one, it never found, it only looked for comma space and it never found a comma space.
Never found it, so it didn't have a second, it only had one string, which was the first one. So what did I just do with this? I know that we should have actually said, okay, it works, let's go on.
You're showing us an arrow back.
I'm showing you that you should break your own software. You know, you should test your own software. You should know how to break what you write. This is the way that you're gonna write code that, you know, will be robust. Then it will say, oh, wait a minute, this is incorrect. One of the ways that we could do that, how could we solve this and so that we will avoid this problem?
At least to fix the error, you can change contains to comma space so that it won't try to split like that.
Right, and I think we can send the separators, also, you know, by, removing, put it separate, I believe, you can send an array. I think so, I'm not sure, as I said, I don't remember using that particular version. Here, you see how we do this, this one here, let me see if I can send it as an array. Yeah, probably just doesn't like it, does it? No, it expects a string. Equal to, and it doesn't like it because let me see. Trying to see the, let me show you what I mean. Let me see if it is, because that's the other thing, that it may be the implementation of this. Ah, there you go. The parameter is as an array of, it can be as an array of characters. That's what we need to do. So it will be single character. Single character. How do I make this the array? So it'll be char.
Oh, I think the brackets go next to the type.
Right over here.
Yes.
Okay, that will be of type. There we go, so we have that. So we should be able to say separator strings. And then it likes it, so it is an array of characters. So where I specifically doing this and not this rank. Yes.
I found a different way to do that, and I
Excuse
found a
me?
different way to split the string, and it didn't need, an array, I guess. All I had to do was, put the value, I put value dot split, and then whatever like the white space or the comma, and then that's inside the parentheses, and outside of that, you just put, the
value dot split, like this one?
Yeah, but that will be inside, that entire, value dot split will be.
So how do you distinguish between having a comma and not having a comma?
I won't get the white space, I didn't get that part of the time.
Okay,
but
so
if
it's
I
not
did a
complete.
conditional statement.
It's not complete. Did you just come to class?
That is.
Just, you missed 40 minutes in all the conversation on how we did this.
Yeah.
Okay. But yes, we talked about that, and this is solving both of them,
Okay.
with spaces and with comma as well. Okay, all right, so this one in here now, it seems to actually work by separating, you know, in individual characters. What this is doing is saying, okay, I'm gonna actually split it on spaces, or, see, that's the difference, or, not with the ones together. The other one that we did was a comma and the space together, and that's why it's separated in there. So when it found it, but it didn't find the comma space, then it didn't like that. So in this case, it says, again, Antonio and Rodrigo, and of course, it's interpreted that incorrectly as well. Now, to actually do that in here, let's see. Instead of doing it like this, we're gonna do it like this. Right? So we're gonna split it in here. And still, see, it doesn't care because it's taking the very first two into that. If I put space now, and still. So we really don't know what's gonna happen if you end up with a lot more of those. So how would you solve something like that? If I put something like this, you know, in general, what would you do if I give you that long name? You as an individual. If I give you all that long name and say, okay, get me the first name and the last name.
If all you care about is the first and the last one, you could get the length of the string, or, get the length of the array whenever you split, and then.
Right, and then you get the first one and the last
Return
one.
the first.
If that would be the thing, but would it be correct?
Maybe not.
What if I do, you know, put some other things in there? I can't hear you.
Would it be possible to use the for loop and to get the last name and do the, itemized for it, to get the last name?
Well, that's what he was saying, you know, if you actually find the length of that, you can just go directly to it and get the first one and the last one. But in this case, you see how really out of specs this is? One of the easiest things to do is would be actually split it one way or another and count how many pieces it came out. If it gives you more than 2 pieces, you discard it, you don't do anything. Because it's invalid, it's outside of the thing that you are requiring. But these are the kinds of things you need to check, you know. Don't make it always work. What happens if it doesn't work? I used to have a student that would just come over here. I remembered I did something like that, and the only time that I taught 1301, I think. And then I said, you know, just go ahead and just, and they will go and put other things, and it will break their programs, all the programs, because they always assume that whatever was put in was correct. All right, so that was sort of on the side, you know, for something like this. So something easy with this will be, I wanna see how many elements I have, I can count how many, and if I have more than what I have, you know, I'm gonna do this, et cetera, et cetera. So there's a way of doing this. Another way to do this, and we're not gonna talk about that. And this is very powerful. If you know about something like this, it will be very helpful for you in your career as a computer scientist. And it's use regular expressions. If you use something like this, you could actually say, take a look at, you know, this expression and apply this regular expression filter, and it will actually return to you first name and last name, or nothing if it doesn't comply with the regular expression. There is in fact a package or namespace in C#, and is called regex, or regular expressions. Regular expressions in C#. See? So this will help you in all kinds of things in formatting, if you learn to use it. The class is not for something like this, but here will be very, very useful. You know, for instance, you could have, different ways. For instance, is this a valid number or not? And, you know, there are ways that you can specify, you know, if this is this format, then it actually complies, and you can extract things from there. Let's see some other ones that will be interesting. Yeah, you see, the class regex represents, you know, something like this, and look at that string over there, that actually represents, is a way of saying this is valid model number. And then you use that with the regex or regular expressions, you actually do that, and then you say, is it a match to the regular expression? It will do it. So here you can actually have those two, you know, and have a regular expression that will express something like this. Very powerful. Just look it up on your own and learn to do these things. There are actually in many languages. There is, if I remember correctly, you do those kinds of things in Linux, right, on the console. That you can just write all those things. I can find, you know, a particular file that complies with, and then you have a regular expression for that, and it will find it. You know, normally what do you have as possibilities in those kinds of, you know, searches? You know, question mark, or you have this over here, and a star, you know, for all this, you know, very, very brute force kind of solutions. With a regular expression, you can find exactly what you're looking for, and then find all kinds of things. So, anyway, that's on the side. So the things that I want to talk about today, besides, you know, all these things that we've talked about, is interfaces. So what's an interface?
It's what the user looks at while using the program.
Say again?
It's what the user looks at while using the program.
Not that interface. That's a user interface. No, I'm talking about like interface in programming.
Like a template, sort of.
It's like a template. You know, I mean, a class could also be a template, but you know, they're sort of similar. What's an interface? So what's an interface in Java? Do you guys see interfaces in Java? How many interfaces have you used? A lot.
Just in data structures.
Say again?
Just in data structures.
Just in data structures. Who do you have for data structures?
I had you over the summer.
Yeah, you're bound to that. Interfaces, actually, let me give you some, so the genealogy of this. When Java came out, which is in the 90s, you know, a lot of the ideas that came from that actually came from other languages that were prior to that. One of those was Objective-C. And Objective-C had actually the idea of interfaces, and that they actually have it separated in two different files. One is implementation, one is the other is interface. But the way that they provided this naming was actually using the name protocol. So in Objective-C, the word for interface is actually protocol. And a protocol, that's exactly what it is. It's a protocol. This is something that we arrange and an agreement that we come to. And I believe if you heard about interfaces in another class, it will actually tell you it's a contract, right? And that's what it is. It's a protocol. That means that I'm going to agree to a series of methods with this signature, each one of those. And if you comply with this protocol, you know, I will be able to communicate with you. You know, that's the bottom line. So Objective-C created, you know, had these protocols. And they say, okay, we can create this protocol, but it's a series of methods, and this is the protocol that we agree on. In fact, in Objective-C, you can have optional methods. You normally, unless Java, the last version actually included that, in Java, everything that you put in there is mandatory. You know, everything in an interface is mandatory. In Objective-C, you have mandatory and optional. So you can have objects that will implement everything that is mandatory, but nothing that is optional. You know, it's just sort of flexible in that sense. So when they created Java, they looked at that, but they were not going to call it protocol. You know, they actually call it interface. And in fact, right now, you can look up something like protocol-driven design or interface-driven design, and you'll find all kinds of things. You'll find videos, etc. In fact, the Apple conventions every year for the developers in Apple, they have sections on protocol-driven design. And this is something that we actually use in an object-oriented design, which is we'll look at the interfaces, and all we come up with is the interfaces that will allow objects to communicate with each other. And then we make objects that implement that interface, which is a lot more flexible than just having objects. You know, I can have an interface and have two different classes, two different types of objects implementing the same interface, and then I'll be able to have the same protocol with both of them. You know, and then I'm not restricted to create a specific classes, but I'm restricted to create specific objects that comply with an interface. So the way that in this case this will work is that we will create the interface, and we will make a class implement that interface. And then this way, we can create many things that will comply with the interface. And even though they are